Today I want to talk with you about Where the Crawdads Sing, a coming-of-age murder mystery by Delia Owens that was originally published in 2018. By 2022, a movie by the same title has been released, and by April of 2023, the book has sold more than 18 million copies, earning a place in the list of the best-sold novels of all time. As per usual, we will start this video with a short synopsis, then proceed to the non-spoiler review, and wrap this video up with the spoilers. If you haven't had a chance to read Where the Crawdads Sing yet, then do not worry. I will make sure to let you know when the spoilers begin. In this novel, we follow two timelines which slowly intertwine. In one of the timelines, we get a story of a young girl named Kaya who grows up in a wild marsh of North Carolina being abused, isolated, and neglected by her family and the local community. In the other timeline, we get to follow a murder investigation in which a young man has been killed and all the signs point to Kaya being the murderer. But has Kaya actually committed said crime? Or do the people of the town simply look for someone to blame? And wouldn't that make the lonely, unsocial, and weird woman a primary target? Now I have to point out that I avoiding reading this novel on purpose. Everyone was talking about how great of the story it was, how good the movie was, how I most definitely need to read it as soon as possible, and so I did what I normally do in cases like that. I bought the book, I put it on my shelf, and I forgot it existed. Until my sister forced me to read it for a book club, that is. And not surprisingly at all those people I talked with before were absolutely right. Where the Crawdads Sing is one of a kind. It's heartbreaking, it's emotional, it's beautiful and entertaining, and completely unexpected. It's hands down one of the best books I have read in 2023, and I've read over 100 of them. The novel is written wonderfully. The author created such a vivid picture of the time period and of the people within it. The story was very focused on what it was trying to say, and the author knew perfect what buttons to push in order to make the readers feel. This book, the characters within it, felt so real that if someone would have told me that this is a true story, I would have easily believed them. I struggled to find the words to explain it, but while reading this book, I felt the author's determination, passion to tell the story. Some people want to write a book and therefore they invent a story they could tell. While here, I couldn't shake the feeling that Delia Owens were burning with the need to tell this story, and the only way for her to let it all out was to write a book. And even though the main hook in the novel is this murder mystery, the best thing about it are the characters. While the beginning of the novel might feel a little slow, once you start to spend the time with the main characters, once you start to understand them, you realize just how invested you have gotten in their personal well-being. All of the characters presented in the novel are interesting and multidimensional. Pick any of the main ones and I guarantee you will spend hours discussing who they are, why they are the way they are, what is the motivation behind their actions. Are their actions moral and are they justified or not? Even the two main locations described in the novel, the town and the marsh, represent the division and could be seen as the characters as well. You have the marsh, which is wild and unpredictable. It's uncontrollable, it follows its own rules and feels too dangerous, too foreign that majority of the people decides to just let it be instead of investing their time into trying to understand its fragile ecosystem. And consequently, our main character, Kaya, is just the same. She's perceived as wild and uneducated, dangerous and antisocial, yet at the same time she is free. She is one with the nature. Meanwhile, the town, and consequently the townfolk, are civilized, smart, polite. They are a complete opposite of the marsh and the marsh girl. Simultaneously, the town is restricting. It's racist and sexist and judgmental. This constant need to work to get the approval of the people is shown for what it is, fake and suffocating. All that being said, let's end this non-spoiler review by doing something I usually don't do and quickly discuss the movie adaptation of Where the Crawdads Sing. I loved this book. I loved it so much that I couldn't wait to see the movie. There were so many descriptions of the nature, the animals, the marsh in the novel that I knew that even if the movie decides to disappoint me story-wise, at the very least it will be incredibly visually pleasant. That being said, Yes, the movie was and absolutely gorgeous and loyally adapted. A true gift to any fan of the world Delia Owens created in her imagination. And yet at the same time, the movie simply could not transfer these intense emotions of fear and loneliness, the utterly devastating hunger. And that's not to say that Daisy Edgar-Jones did a bad job. On the contrary, she was an absolute perfection in this role. It's just the movie itself looked a little too pretty. It looked more like a popular holiday destination discovered by a TikTok influencer and less like a wild paradise which is as dangerous as it is pretty. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that if you haven't watched the movie yet, then absolutely do it, but take the time to read the book first. And if you have seen the movie already, then still read the novel. I promise you, having seen the movie will not take away any of the book reading pleasure. It will only let you experience this wonderful story on a much deeper level. All in all, if you haven't read Where the Crawdads Sing yet, I hope that you will think about giving it a chance. And for all of those who did read it, let's move to the spoiler review so we could talk a little bit more about the characters and the big plot twist of the novel. Alright, let's start our spoiler review by looking into the people and relationships that shaped Kaya into the person she is. During the very first chapters, we learn that Kaya has no one in this life she could count on, despite being from a rather big family. She is all alone. Her mother left, and shortly after, all of her siblings did too. And so right from the get-go, we are forced to ask ourselves what we would have done in their situation. It seems incomprehensible that a mother could just pack up and leave her children behind to live in poverty with a dangerous, abusive man. This one action encourages us to believe that she didn't care about her children in the first place, that they were nothing but a burden to her. And yet, as the story progresses, we get glimpses into a happy family life. We see a loving mother who does all she can with the limited resources she has, trying to bring some brightness into the lives of her children. She plays with them, she tries to teach them important life lessons, and she genuinely cares about their well-being. And the more information we are being provided with, the harder it is for us to understand how she could have just left her children behind. Of course, later in the book, we learn about the mental health issues that her mother was dealing with, as well as the constant emotional, psychological, and physical abuse. But that information was given to Kaya just a little too late, if you ask me. Kaya grew up not knowing, not understanding how her mother, a woman who was nothing but kind and caring, could one day just leave without a single glance back. She left without any reassurance of coming back, without any explanation, teaching little Kaya a lesson that even the people who seem to love you unconditionally will eventually put themselves first. And the big life lessons that follow Kaya throughout most of her formative years do not end with her mother. Kaya's father instilled an important lesson which we see her applying to her relationship with Chase as well. In order to get what you want, you need to adapt your behavior, to shape yourself into someone the other person wants you to be. But we will get back to Chase later. Let's talk about Kaya's relationship with her father. Now, this man is just one out of a million examples in this book I could use that shows that no one is truly a villain nor truly a hero. We all are capable of good and of evil. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not defending Kaya's father here. I'm not even interested in playing the devil's advocate. The man is awful. He's weak and selfish and completely out of control. He manipulated a woman into marrying him. He did not care about bettering himself or their situation. Instead, he dealt with his insecurities by turning to alcohol, gambling, and violence. He made his wife's and his children's lives a living hell. But that's not to say that he wasn't capable of kindness. Once in a while, we did get to see him actually care for Kaya. He took her fishing, he listened to her stories, he gave her his backpack. The biggest problem with his kindness, however, is that it is conditional. Already as a child, Kaya learned that if she will stay quiet, if she will get out of his line of sight, if she brings home food, cooks him dinner, if she provides only comfort and none of the problems, then she is likely to be safe, accepted even, by the only parental figure she has left. When it comes to Kaya's father's disappearance, I have no doubt in my mind that he didn't leave the Marsh on purpose. I am sure that he has died or been killed. The question whether it was better for Kaya to grow up by herself or with her abusive father is open for interpretation. Besides her parents, there are two other people we need to talk about who played a crucial part in Kaya's life: Tate and Chase. From the very first time we meet Tate, he's presented to us as the good guy. He appears only for a couple of pages, but he instantly manages to create this aura of safety for Kaya. During one short interaction, a girl who is afraid of everyone gets to imagine what it would be like to have a friend. As the years go by, we get to see Tate actively trying to become a part of Kaya's life, and I do honestly believe that this wish to know her wasn't driven by any other ulterior motives. If anything, he was curious. He might have felt bad for the lonely girl and wanted to help her, but his intentions were pure, the same way his feelings for her were genuine. Now, truth be told, this novel broke my heart many times. I felt heartbroken when I realized that all Kaya's siblings have left her behind. I felt heartbroken when Kaya's father burned the only letter her mother had sent them, by doing that not only taking away the only means of communication Kaya might have had with her mother, but also breaking that already fragile peace he and his daughter managed to establish throughout the years. And I had to choke down my tears when Kaya lost her appetite at school despite being constantly starved. But none of that can compare to the heartache I felt when Tate made the conscious decision to leave Kaya alone, waiting for him on that beach. Tate promised her to be back and then left her too, knowing very well how little trust in humanity Kaya has left. Seeing Kaya come to the realization that Tate just became one more person who disappointed her crushed my heart. It ruined my day. It made my body ache with sadness. It devastated me, and yet I couldn't even truly blame him for making this decision to not come back. He was young, desperate for acceptance from like-minded people, and life with Kaya felt all too restricting. That being said, leaving her the way he did was the most painful thing he could have done. I feel like this quote from The Little Prince explains the situation best. You become responsible forever for what you have tamed. And that's exactly what Tate did. He tamed Kaya. Sure, Kaya was lonely and she daydreamed about being able to have people in her life, but it wasn't her who ventured looking for company. It was Tate who put the effort into making her feel safe around him, making her trust him, and eventually making her believe that she needs him in her life. And then he left, just like everyone else did. Lastly, we need to talk about Kaya's relationship with Chase. Something that we know won't end well from the very first pages of the novel. Now, I have to admit that I love the fact that Delia Owens didn't turn Chase into a one-dimensional villain. Sure, he's spoiled, egocentric, and manipulative. He's ashamed of his relationship with Kaya. He cheats on her, lies to her, and brags about playing with her feelings to his buddies. But at the same time, in some fucked up way, it is clear to us that Chase truly cares about Kaya. Just the fact that he never took off the necklace she gave him, even after he married another, tells me that this was more than a game for him. So when it comes to Chase, I do believe that more than anything else, he's a product of his upbringing, the same way Kaya is. Kaya lives a lonely wild life in which she learns to follow the rules of Animal Kingdom, in which she creates her own moral compass, and because of which she does not feel any guilt for killing a man she believed with a good reason to be dangerous. Chase, on the other hand, grew up having everything he could have ever wanted. Family he could count on, respect of the town, admiration of his peers, secure future. He was never told that he couldn't have something, and here comes Kaya. Someone he really wants, yet at the same time he knows that he cannot have. Because having her means losing the security and respect he had always counted on. In a sense, Tate and Chase are both facing the same dilemma. They both need to choose between Kaya and the comfort of the rest of the world, the acceptance of their community. And while Tate makes a mistake in judgment, Chase tries to have it all. And as the story progresses, we see just how little happiness it all brings to him. When talking about Kaya's and Chase's relationship, I think it's worth to point out that Kaya never truly loved Chase, never genuinely cared about him. Instead of being herself the way she was with Tate, Kaya put on a mask and adjusted her behavior to meet Chase's expectations. She didn't care about being married to Chase. She cared about being married, about the security of never being alone again. Kaya truly believed that if she plays this game right, she will end up winning the biggest prize, normal life. All that being said, the only constant in Kaya's life has been Jumpin'. He and his wife never asked for anything in return but gave Kaya everything they had, be that material things such as spare clothing and food, or more importantly, the never wavering loyalty and support. Jumpin' was the only person to day after day show Kaya that people are kind. And that's why Jumpin' in my mind is the absolute MVP of this story. Now before we wrap this up, let's talk a little bit about the death of Chase and trial and the ending of the novel. Truth be told, as a fan of crime novels, I'm always impressed by the way some authors manage to create the setup for the crime, as well as its execution in the way which would leave you guessing, but would also seem obvious once the answer is given. And Delia Owens just gave us a perfect crime with a perfect plot twist ending. Now, if you do not know who killed Chase, it is easy enough to believe that Kaya is innocent. Throughout the book, she is shown to us as a kind, compassionate, and quiet woman. There's no real reason for us to suspect her. If anything, for most of the book I was sure that it had to be Tate or Jumpin' who took the matters into their own hands because of how protective of Kaya they were. However, as the trial went by, I convinced myself that Chase's death must have been a tragical accident, because it couldn't have been Kaya who did it. She has a strong alibi and her behavior never raised any suspicions on my part. It couldn't have been Tate either, because he would have confessed to the crime and dealt with consequences rather than risking Kaya being imprisoned or worse. And it couldn't have been Jumpin' because he is one of the very few characters in this novel who has never shown a negative side. His kindness is too important to the novel to make him a killer. So yes, I convinced myself that Chase's death is an accident to an extent in which I also convinced myself that the author made a mistake, wrote herself into a corner by mentioning the missing necklace. I knew this death was an accident, and therefore I truly believe that we will simply not going to get an answer to the missing necklace question. Overall, I absolutely loved the trial scenes. I loved how much of an insight it gave us into the townspeople. I love that by listening to people's stories, we learn that Kaya has never been as alone as she thought she is. At the same time, I absolutely loved that till the very end of the trial, I honestly did not know who will win. Yes, the evidence was pointing into Kaya being innocent, but there were also enough stories to make jury doubt, especially in as prejudiced town as this one. For a while I believed that Kaya is innocent and still that the town will condemn her, force this blame on her simply because she's the Marsh girl. I kept on reading and kept on getting upset because I absolutely did not see a happy ending to her story. And I have to say that I have never been so happy to be so wrong. The ending this author gave us was so much better than anything I could have imagined. This was an absolutely perfect ending through and through. Jury voting in her favor shows that there's still hope for townspeople. Kaya being able to live her life in peace with a man who accepts her just the way she is, as well as her connecting with her brother, finally brought her closer to having a family she always dreamt of. And Tate finding her poems on Chase's necklace and still choosing to stand by her felt like a bittersweet ending that finally put everything we've learned from this story into their rightful places. Sure, Kaya was sweet and innocent, but she was also more than capable of killing Chase. She was patient and meticulous. We are talking about a woman who spent decades learning how to survive by herself in a harsh wild. While Kaya is uneducated in the formal sense of this word, she is far from being stupid. If anything, taking the necklace was the only rash emotional decision Kaya had made that night. Besides that, she did what she believed that she was ought to do. She protected herself and her home from a predator. And truth be told, while from the moral standpoint what she did was not right, after reading her story, after getting into the same headspace she was in, and understanding how she sees the world, I found it difficult to blame Kaya for the crime she committed. But that's just my opinion. What about yours?